Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice You Know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by Grain Equipment Company, where innovation meets execution. I'm Dave Russell. Joel has our Amplifying Ag with BASF report. Joel?
Soybean cyst nematode robbing yields more than many farms might be realizing. Nick Tinsley of BASF says fall is the optimal time to be sampling for SCN.
What kind of field should I be sampling? And there's a few different schools of thought here. Let's say, for example, you've got a corn or a wheat field that will be going to soybean next year. That's a perfectly valid field to test. And the reason is it's going to give you a really good idea of the level of threat next year for that soybean crop. So that's one type of field to test. The other thing to consider is, let's say you've got a soybean field and it didn't quite yield as high as you thought it would, and you don't quite know why. Taking SCN samples in that field may allow you to understand what impact SCN had on your crop after the fact, and then plan for future years.
Those tips coming from the latest in the Amplifying Ag video series, online now at ohioagnet.com. And once we've sampled for nematodes, how do we interpret the results?
The threshold for SCN is somewhere around 500 eggs per 100 cc's of soil. Now, this is going to vary depending on where you're located and what that soil is like. So for example, a sandier soil that dries out, has multiple stresses on it, you might lower that threshold a little bit, and you might increase it a bit if you're in a really optimal type of fields.
Nick Tinsley of BASF and their latest from the Amplifying Ag video series. Again, more at ohioagnet.com. I'm Joel Norwood reporting.
The September Purdue University CME Group Ag Economy Barometer reached its lowest reading since March 2016. Declining income expectations pushed farmer sentiment down as the barometer fell to 88. The index of future expectations dropped 14 points to 94. The index of current conditions also fell 7 points to 76, nearly matching levels seen in April 2020 during the height of COVID. September survey revealed that farmers are increasingly worried about commodity prices, input costs, agricultural trade prospects, and the potential impact of the upcoming election on their farm operations. The top concerns of survey respondents include 34% saying high input costs were their chief worry. 33% of respondents pointed to lower output prices as their number one worry. Only 26% of all the survey respondents expect agricultural exports to rise during the next 5 years, the most pessimistic response to that question since it began in 2019. Well, the 2018 Farm Bill extension expired Monday. Chad Smith has more on the impacts farmers are already feeling.
With no new farm bill in place after the 2018 Farm Bill deadline passed, there are already impacts on U.S. farmers and ranchers. Sam Kiefer, Vice President of Public Policy for the American Farm Bureau Federation, outlines some of the programs that went away.
Most of the impacts won't be felt until the new crop year, or for dairy producers, the impact will be felt beginning January 1st. But immediately, we will see several important animal health programs stop. Some USDA programs for new and beginning farmers and ranchers will not continue. But most importantly, there won't be any certainty for our growers who are already planning their 2025 crop year.
He says partisanship in the nation's capital is likely the biggest roadblock to getting a new bill done.
We have narrow margins in both the House and the Senate, and those narrow margins require bipartisanship, but we're not seeing a whole lot of that. And the presidential election cycle is only exacerbating that challenge. We're also seeing a lack of momentum. And the House Ag Committee tried to create momentum with a bipartisan markup, but we haven't seen any real action come out of the Senate.
Chad Smith, Washington.
The markets are next.
Did you know soybeans' number one customer is animal agriculture? That includes Ohio's pig farms. Soybeans provide a blend of protein and energy to keep Ohio pig farms growing. Nationally, Ohio ranks 7th in pork production, and those pigs consume 6.3 million metric tons of soybean meal. It takes a lot of soybeans to make that kind of bacon. Soybeans feeding the industry that feeds us. Brought to you by the Ohio soybean farmers and their checkoff.
Soybeans grown in Ohio and across the heartland are meeting the feedstock demand for clean fuels. Biodiesel is a clean-burning and reliable fuel that enhances engine life, power, and mileage. Plus, this high-performance fuel works in any diesel engine without modification. With biodiesel, we fuel the economy, do good for the environment, and support soybean farmers. Learn how using biodiesel can add value to every bushel of soybeans grown at soyohio.org.
The market's brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. At the Board of Trade, December corn 432.5 up 3.5. March corn 450 up 3.5. November soybeans 1056 down a penny and a quarter. January beans 1074 and a quarter down a penny and a quarter. July wheat 654 3/4 up 17 3/4. At the Mercantile Exchange, October cattle 187.42 up $2.95. October hogs 84.67 up $1.17. November feeder cattle 248.55 up $3.87. This is the Ohio AgNet.